Welcome back to the Mothering from Within podcast. Today, I'm so excited to introduce Dr. Greer Kirshenbaum, a neuroscientist, author, doula, and infinite family sleep specialist. Dr. Greer's passion lies in the transforming of the future of mental health by focusing on how early nurturing practices can really shape our babies' and children's brains for their entire lives. She's the founder of Nurture Neuroscience and the best-selling author of The Nurture Revolution. Dr. Greer helps parents navigate baby sleep and development through the lens of neuroscience. And she really brings a fresh perspective on how we can raise emotionally healthy and resilient children. So, welcome, Greer. It's so nice to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So I would love for you to, just dive into how you even got
Mhm.
started with this line of work. And we can kind of go back to your own motherhood journey, but also I think it would be curious to dive into a little bit about the history of how you became a doula with a neuroscience background.
Yeah. I go back even further now to my
Nice.
own experience as a baby. I really see now how strongly that has sort of put me on this path. I always share I was a super high needs baby. The stories about me, I could never be put down. I never could sleep alone. I never once was in a crib. Breastfed around the clock, cried a lot, never slept was sort of, the thing. We can call these babies high needs, but at the same time, these are the needs of a lot of babies, right? I think that I had a really sensitive stress
Mhm.
system, but those stories, have always followed me around. My mom still talks about them. She was sort of the weirdo in her, world for having babies. Like my brother was exactly the same as me, but also the weirdo for showing up for us in a really empathic, supportive way and not dismissing any of it.
Wow. How lucky you were.
Yes, we were really, really lucky. And she was mostly supported by La Leche League back then. That was like her main support. And my grandmother was also really, really sensitive and in tune with what babies needed, which was really wonderful.
Mhm.
And my mom, amazingly, also is just very confident in what she does, and none of the criticism got to her back then. She's very stubborn.
If only all mothers could be like that, right?
Yes.
Just confident in their own abilities to take care of their own babies and to just follow whatever feels right in their heart and not have to worry about what society is saying on the outside.
Completely, completely.
I love it.
And they were saying the same things that people hear now, right? You're causing this, they cry a lot and they need you a lot because you are always cuddling them, and she was just like, "No, I know that's not true. I know what my baby needs." So it's great. We can all channel that in our
Yes.
parenting, myself included. So yes, that was where I started. And my mom had a huge influence on my interests, sort of guiding me towards medicine, a career in medicine, but also in this interest in early life experience and
Mhm.
how that shapes us. So yeah, that was sort of the first, step on the way, is kind of being that really high needs baby. I think I can see what babies need. I always knew what babies needed, and I was always aware of that. So yeah, sort of on a direction towards medical school, I started studying neuroscience and really focused in on how early experience shapes every brain system. We have this incredible period of flexibility and brain growth in the first 3 years of life where our vision is developed, our hearing is developed, but then also these much more complex kind of systems, our social systems, our attachment system, our mental health, our neurotransmitter systems, involved in mental health and other things. They're really, really, really critically developing in these early years, meaning these first 3 years are a time where we have access to shape these areas, and then we're kind of working off them for the rest of our life
Mhm.
in many ways. So I studied that very, very closely in my through my undergrad. I did not go to medical school. I was much more interested in finding cures and preventative medicine and care versus treating illnesses. And that led me to do a PhD and postdoc. And by the end of that, the amount of research that had come out on how babies' brains grow and how much we can make a positive impact on mental health, that was just overwhelming for me. And at the end of my postdoc, I decided, let's go for this. Let's write a book. I wanted to make a documentary that still maybe will happen one day, and really teach parents and professionals all of this amazing information, because we know it in academia. It's sort of, we're like, yeah, obviously. But in the world, that is not true,
Yeah.
like at all. It's changing.
Social media does not tell you that part.
No, 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 no. And I do, it's definitely changed. I've been at this for
Mhm,
now close to 9 years, maybe going on 10. And certainly things have changed,
mhm,
but it's not common knowledge quite yet. We're getting
mhm,
there though.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have felt that shift also. I would say probably over the last, like, maybe 5, 6, 7 years, because back when I had my baby, well, my first baby, that was 9 years ago, and that was definitely not something that was in the mainstream being talked about, was this idea of the attachment and the nurture and all of that. It was still very much that independence, the training of our babies for sleep and all the other things. But it's nice to see that that is shifting and that we really are shifting more towards this responsiveness and this supporting of our babies, and even starting to lean more into what is nervous system regulation and why is it important and all of this stuff. So I think we're
Yeah.
definitely heading in the right direction. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your motherhood journey as well, and how that all kind of started and went along and potentially solidified your path.
Yeah. So many people well, so I was teaching and engaged in this before I had my son, and people were like, "Well, let's see what happens when you have a baby." And I was like, "Pretty sure it's gonna be great." And I think it just strengthened everything I was teaching becoming a mother. I had a really, really terrible, stressful pregnancy and birth, and still kind of knew that everything's gonna be okay because I'm gonna nurture my baby and really be there for him for those 3 years. And I was, really in it. I was there. I answered every cry. I held him for sleep and bed shared, breastfed, and laughed with him, and, all the things. Doesn't mean it's easy. It was
Yeah.
super hard. I was also mostly alone during all of it and transforming and growing myself throughout it. But I think the motherhood journey really just helped me embody everything I taught and really understood, oh, we say it's hard, but this is how it feels when this is hard. This is how it feels when they're having the 10th tantrum of the day. This is how it feels when they're hungry again after 20 minutes. Those kinds of things. And I think really what it did was really reveal to me the incredible beauty and awe and transformation that can happen through a nurtured relationship
Mm.
between a parent and baby. I was always like, wow, this is incredible. This is so beautiful. I'm so lucky to be able to be here for a person like this.
Mhm.
And yeah, very much embodied through my experience.
It's a great shift in perspective, is the enjoying of all the moments and feeling that you really are there to make a difference, rather than focusing on all the tantrums and the crying and like, "Oh my gosh, this is so hard." And that's not to negate that it is hard, but that shift in perspective, I feel like, can change the feeling of something being so overwhelming and stressful to being, yes, exhausting, hard, but still in a way fulfilling almost as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember those moments all the time. You know, and that, baby wakes up crying again. And it's like, this is so hard right now. I'm exhausted right now. And I know exactly what my next steps are. Even
Mhm,
however hard it is, I know being there for him right now is where my highest self wants to be, where it's the place, right? And
mhm,
we can get so overwhelmed in so many of those moments where it's like, why is this happening again? Or I've already done so much today, or all the things that we can think. But it is always easy, or was easier for me anyway, to return to my baby needs me right now, and I'm gonna ride the waves and, you know, be be there in the way I
Mhm.
want to be there. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about the Nurture Revolution
Mhm.
and what your mission is in terms of bringing more of this awareness and the importance of nurture to families everywhere?
Yeah, for sure. So my book is called The Nurture Revolution. Grow your baby's brain and transform their mental health through the art of nurtured parenting. And that is the mission, right? I really want parents, professionals to know how incredible and tremendous this brain growth is for babies from 0 to 3 years and also for parents. Parents have tremendous brain growth during this time as well. And that knowledge really supports close, sensitive, responsive parenting. When we
Mhm.
understand that, it answers a lot of questions and it debunks a lot of myths
Mhm.
that are out there about babies. And so much of the kind of mainstream parenting out there is really working against brain development.
Mhm.
And I really want people to know when we understand baby and parent brain development, we can work with it and we can help it. And not only are we doing something incredible and tremendous for the lifelong health of people, but it feels really good, and
Mhm.
it's really aligned with our own biology as parents and
Mhm.
caregivers too. So my book talks about the why and also the how
Yeah,
of how we can do it.
I love that, and I think that it really also then helps you to embody those instincts that are leading you to nurture your baby
Yeah.
and really to follow those instincts and know that those instincts are there for a reason and to sort of sit in that knowing and that comfort of like, no, no, actually I am doing the right thing.
Mhm. We're so led by our cognitive brain parts before we
Mhm.
have children. We often will dismiss our feelings. Some people don't even feel feelings very well before they have babies.
Yeah.
And we do need to make a switch into feeling sensations from our body, feeling our feelings, being led by our feelings and intuition as parents,
Mhm.
using our cognition, of course, but not in a dominant way. We need to find balance
Mhm.
between our cognition and feeling. And a lot of people, find this happens, and a lot of people need information in order to kind of sometimes have permission for these things to happen.
Mhm.
Not many mothers that I have come in contact in the past, decade or so have even known that their brain has changed. And they're sort of like, "Oh, what's wrong with me? Like I can't think the same way. I can't work the same way. I can't, do all the things the same way." And once they understand, "Oh, wow, my brain has actually gone through a change as profound as adolescence," right? We call it matrescence or
Mhm.
putrescence for dads. They're like, "Oh, wow, my brain's actually changed. It's under construction. You know, it's transforming, and actually I have amazing new powers that are not the same, but actually are kind of guiding me to use my senses more, to use my feelings more, to use my intuition more." And it's a hugely transformative experience, but our society is fighting hard against it. It's telling people, when you're pregnant, pretend you're not. We don't want to know. We want you to do the exact same amount that you've been doing before, change nothing. And you have birth, like get back to it as fast as you can, right?
Mhm.
Bounce back, get out again, do all the things again, pretend like you don't have a baby. Um, and yeah, work and produce in the same way. And that is not what our biology is supporting at all.
Mhm. I want to take a moment and let you know about my book, Mothering from Within. Like a good friend, therapist, and mentor, this book offers guidance and support to help you navigate motherhood with intuition, grace, and yes, a bit of humor. It's full of evidence informed, developmentally appropriate, attachment focused information on developmental milestones, baby sleep, reflux, feeding, mama mental health, and so much more. To grab a copy, check out the link in the show notes below. So let's dive in a little bit to some of those changes that do change in both baby's brain, but also in the parent brain. And how can we kind of lean into those changes and know that they're happening so that we're not thinking like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me?
For
Um,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, for the baby essentially they have their emotional system developing mainly from 0 to 3. Many other systems obviously are developing sensory, motor, social. But I focus on the emotional brain because when
Mhm.
we understand the emotional brain of babies is developing and support it, we support the growth of every other system too. It's
Mhm.
sort of like when we focus on that, everything grows beautifully. And the main brain areas in babies are their stress system.
Okay.
And parents sort of know this a little bit. They're sort of like, well, if you nurture a baby or spoil a baby too much, then they're never going to be independent and they're never going to be able to control their stress and they're never going to be healthy, right? So parents kind of know that the emotional brain, the stress system's developing, but the information of how to support it is a little bit wrong. So, we actually know when we are really nurturing, supportive, what people call spoiling. So my message is spoil your baby,
Mhm.
definitely with as much love and support as you can.
The more the better.
Exactly. You are growing their stress system to be very resilient when they grow up, to be, in the right range of size and control. And you're growing them, their brain to be independent, to be healthy, all of these wonderful things. That's on the baby side. The parent side has many, many brain areas. There's actually a paper released 2 days ago
Nice.
that elucidates even more of the changes that are happening in mothers. And fathers also have changes, and so do people who don't give birth, right? If we have
Mhm.
surrogacy, adoption, other things like that, just happens at a different trajectory. But multiple brain areas are changing in parents, and a lot of them are circuits that help us take care of our babies.
Mhm.
So our sensory systems change so we can actually be more sensitive to cries. We can hear them more. And, one of those low nurturing myths are don't go to your baby every time they cry.
Mhm.
Let them cry by themselves or they have to figure it out. And it's like once you know that your brain is actually so finely tuned to hear the tiniest squeak of a cry, you sort of know, oh, actually, maybe I'm made to go and
Mhm.
respond to my baby. And also, like, we're pulled to. Right? It's so you have to, like, pin someone down not to go to their crying baby, right?
Mhm.
Or distract them or give them headphones or something, right? So we're really meant to go there. Our threat detection system changes, so we're actually always looking out for threats. Like, is my baby breathing, eating, drinking, eliminating? Are they doing all these healthy things, growing, walking? And that, can also bring on some mental health challenges, right? Because sometimes they can become intrusive thoughts and we need support if that happens. But kind of imagining kind of scary scenarios for your baby, that is also part of our changing mother brain, father brain. Like,
Mhm.
I would remember, like, going to the playground and imagining all the million ways my son could, like, fall off things, and, in that case, it's sort of like, "Okay, brain, thank you for showing me all of these threats, like, I'm gonna make sure I'm protective," right, to make sure the baby's okay,
Mhm.
and that can be the case in a lot of situations. The reward system is another big one. So our babies are incredibly rewarding, right?
Okay.
Wanting to hold your baby, kiss your baby. So people want to, like, eat their babies, right? They're so precious and adorable. All part of our changing mother and father brains. And sometimes things can get in the way if people are like, you're holding them too much, you're kissing them too much,
Mhm.
you're loving them too much. And knowing that, no, actually I'm totally changed to be love bombing my baby at all times, as long as baby is, like, into it too, of course,
Yes.
which they mostly are. Um, yeah, we're doing a great thing
Mhm.
by doing all of that, and not only is it growing the baby's brain, the parent's brain, part of that is also, like, if we're breastfeeding, we're sampling viruses and bacteria off our baby when we're
Mhm.
kissing them and loving them and creating those antibodies to give to them, right? Like, it's all part of this beautiful system that's there. So those are some big ones that change in parents.
Mhm.
And parents' stress systems are also rebuilt during the baby
Mm.
years. So the more nurturing we are, the more our brain changes, the better parents, the more sensitive parents we are. And then we also have this opportunity to reshape our own mental health.
Which I think is so cool, healing our own childhood traumas and, generational patterns even.
Yes, absolutely. So many parents support it and the science supports it too.
Mhm. I love
Yeah.
it. Can you share maybe some practical tips or ways that parents can help to reduce their baby stress or their own stress? Because as much as we do want to nurture our baby and respond to our baby and support our baby, sometimes it is really hard. And we have this feeling or this need that we have to stop the tears. And if we don't stop the tears, then there's something wrong with us or something wrong with our baby, or we're, spiraling into that whole pattern of, oh my gosh, now the stress is going to harm my baby and all of this. So, can
Yeah.
you share some practical tips on how we can kind of know that we're doing the right thing, or if there's special things that you often share with your families of like, as long as you're doing XYZ, you can know that you're offering that nurture kind of brain support?
Yeah, it's such a good question for parents. So I think the first one that you kind of hit on was kind of bringing up that so many people are doing it alone.
Mhm.
And I think knowing we're really not supposed to, like, I often will say, I wish there was 3 adults in every home with 1 baby,
Mhm.
because with 3 adults, like, 1 or 2 of them are probably working full time, and one of them's probably taking care of a baby full time or switching off. But, in the off times, that means that one parent's taking care of a baby, one parent's cooking or cleaning or doing admin in the home, and maybe the third adult there is resting, right? And then the 3 of them can kind of switch through those
Mhm.
duties. When there's 2 parents, nobody's resting
Mhm.
ever. And when there's 1 parent, they're doing like the job of 6 people
Mhm.
probably, right?
Mhm.
It's like magnified. So so just knowing that, and you know, if we can mitigate it in any way, fantastic. I think so there's also sometimes guilt of like,
Mhm.
I don't want to take a break. It has to be me.
Mhm.
They cry a bit more if it's dad or grandma or whatever. Um, and so I think knowing that it was never supposed to be just you, it was never supposed to be just one person. Hopefully, it's other loving, supportive
Mhm.
people. But really trying to like advocate for some time for self,
Mhm.
for doing nothing, for sitting in the bath, for going for a walk, for calling a friend, for laughing with someone, or, just having a little bit of that. Super, super important. And I know
Mhm.
a lot of people laugh in my face, including myself, when I look back at my own experience. But that is what I would have told myself
Mhm.
then. I was alone in without my family in Los Angeles and I had my son, like, hire a doula or a babysitter
Mhm.
to be coming over at least weekly,
Mhm.
just to have a bit of that, right?
Yeah.
Because we burn out. We burn out. Yeah.
And I think we don't realize that that's why we're burning out. I think we often blame, like, oh, my baby's not sleeping, and oh, my baby is fussy, which all of those things contribute also. But one of the things that really is the kind of main driver is that we are not taking care of our own nervous system in the same way that we did before kids. And then
Yes.
you add on all the extra input that comes in, like sensory wise, when you have a baby and then you have the crying like all day long and you're smelling the poo and like you're getting peed on and all of the things, your body is feeling different. All of those things eventually start to overwhelm our nervous system. And I think
Yeah.
this is the big piece where we're not even realizing that our nervous systems are overloaded. And that is why there's so many professionals talking about taking care of yourself and self-care and all of this stuff. Yes, it's kind of this catchy, trendy term now, but sometimes I understand that it feels like another to do on the to do list. But when we reframe it and understand, no, actually, this is as important as eating and drinking water, is kind of this regenerating almost our nervous system, it becomes less of a to do and more of a actually I have to do this.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love all those little tips and stuff. So I want to just quickly, and this could be like a whole podcast episode in and of itself, but I want to touch on this idea of how understanding the neuroscience piece can change our approach to baby sleep. And we're just going to kind of zip through this because I know we could both talk about this topic for a very long time. But I think that this is a big one for parents is like this obsession with sleep in our culture. And
Mhm.
so, how does understanding our baby's brain and our brains and how those change and how we can nurture those brains, how does that change how we should look at baby sleep?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, a lot of infant mental health, nonprofits and advocacy will talk about when we're responsive to babies' cries, we're helping their mental health. When we understand their cues, we're helping their mental health. When we connect, right? But they leave out night.
Mhm.
And for a baby, there's no difference between daytime and nighttime, other than that the sun is down, depending on where you live, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And and we really do need to continue that responsive care through naps and through bedtime
Mhm.
care as well. And the alternative to this is sleep training, which is basically, telling babies sleep time, putting them in their crib, closing the door, and deciding how long you're going to leave them there until you go
Mhm.
back, right?
Mhm.
But that's a huge percentage of a baby's life. That's depending on their
Mhm.
age, 60 to 70% of their life. And that's a huge amount of time to be unresponsive.
Mhm.
And I would say puts their developing brain at risk
Mhm.
if they're spending a lot of time receiving unresponsive care. So there is an obsession with baby sleep. And there is a way that you do not need to be obsessed with it at all.
Mhm.
We can really, really free parents to notice when your baby's tired or sleepy, but to be able to set them out to really have that sleep optimized where they can never be trapped at home, never be watching the clock, never be, constantly talking about it or texting about it or obsessing or ruminating about it. It could just be an event of the day,
Mhm.
right? I always say, like with my son, we spent, he was generally easygoing if he was close to us. We went to parties, we went to restaurants. I would go out in the evening. I never was controlled by his sleep, not one bit, using baby carriers, having him fall asleep at other people's houses, just kind of having him sleep in the car, sleep on the go, all these kinds of things. You can really find a lot more joy in parenting if you have a great understanding of how to support the sleep.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning, though, that that experience potentially isn't one that all parents will have. Not all babies are going to be the easygoing babies who will just sleep anywhere. But
Yep.
but I think the key is really tuning into your unique baby and
Yep.
understanding what your baby needs. And regardless of whether that's what your social media accounts that you follow say or not, or whether that's what you're Googling on Dr. Google at 2 o'clock in the morning, that really tuning into what is working for your baby, what is working for you, what feels good in your heart in terms of how you're responding to your baby, and like not really worrying about what the rest of the world is saying about that.
And with a baby who's higher needs with their sleep, like you also don't have to be worried about it either.
Yeah.
They can have 30-minute naps.
Mhm.
They can cry and be supported during the crying, right? There's usually a time where the on the go stuff ends for a lot of babies, but even then, you
Mhm.
don't have to be
Yeah.
obsessed with it the way that people are wound up to be.
Yeah, and I wanna just touch on this point that you just made that I fully agree with is this supported while they're crying piece. And I think this is a big difference, right? Where babies cry. We can't necessarily stop the tears. They're crying for a number of reasons. And the difference between the nurture piece and like this idea that our society has of like, oh, they have to be independent and you're spoiling them is that support, right? Where if we're supporting our babies while they're crying, if we're trying to meet their needs or make sure that their basic needs are met, if we're coming to them with the intention of this loving contact with this idea that we're here to support them and to hold them, even if they're screaming their head off and we have no idea why, that is still nurturing their brain and still supporting their nervous system And that is not the same when we are not there and they're crying unsupported.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of parents will ask that question, like, what's the difference? What's the difference if they're crying in the crib or crying in my arms? Right. And the difference is when they're in your arms and you're rocking them, singing to them, telling them, I'm so sorry that you're crying. I'm here for you. I hear you're sad. Their bodies have oxytocin released into them by the multisensory input you're receiving. So they have cortisol, they have the stress hormone, but they also have oxytocin, right? And so it's a very different experience for their brain. It's a very different psychological experience. Crying alone is only cortisol, right? And
Mhm.
so they're two totally different experiences.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just conscious of time, but I would love if there was anything else that you kind of wanted to touch on or share that maybe you talk about in your book or just in your teaching and training in terms of this nurture revolution or this idea of how to best nurture, why it's important or whatever.
Yeah. I think I always sign off by saying this is a really special time of life. Everyone kind of knows that. But it goes beyond, feeling special and new and wonderful, like welcoming a new baby into the world. It's just the most incredible opportunity to transform. And I just invite parents to try it, right? No matter where you're at, try being responsive, try being as nurturing and loving as you can and spoiling that baby, as many would say, in a really positive way and see how it feels. And
Mhm.
I invite you to do it and join all the millions of parents around the world who are engaged in it, healing, growing, and creating mental health for the future
I
for
love it.
babies. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move into some rapid fire questions. Are
Great.
you an introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
I love it. Yeah. It's so funny. I feel like most of us that I've been interviewing are introverted with
Oh, yeah.
some extrovert tendencies at times, but mostly
Yes.
introverts. Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet or salty?
Oh my goodness. I'd say, ooh, sweet.
Nice. I love
Cinnamon
it.
buns are my thing.
Oh, fun. Oh, those smell so good. I think I actually like the smell more than eating them.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
What is your favorite way to prioritize taking care of yourself during the day or during the week?
Yeah. I do a lot of hiking with friends.
Mm.
So I
Mhm.
love that. I love recommending that to moms too,
Yeah.
because you're getting fresh air, nature, friendship, laughter, movement. It covers so many
Mhm.
fantastic things. Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful, and you can do that either with or without your baby, so and it works the same, right, in terms
Yep.
of regulating your nervous system, so that's great.
Yep.
What is one piece of advice that you got in your first few years of motherhood that really kind of stands out for you?
Yeah. What was the best advice? I'm thinking of some funny advice. When I was in the hospital, um, and I was being told a lot of scary things, my son was premature. My mom said, "Don't worry,
Mhm.
you are going to nurture him so beautifully. Everything's going to be fine." And that turned out to be true. I needed to hear that at that time.
Oh, I love it. Your mom really
Yeah.
sounds like a special person who just knows the exact right thing to say and do in the moment.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. Okay, so tell us where we can sort of learn more about you and where people can purchase your book and any other sort of ways that you have of supporting parents.
Yeah. So all of my offerings are on my website, which is nurture-neuroscience.com. I'm on Instagram, Dr. Greer Kirshenbaum, and I'm always offering workshops and support groups and, trying to invent new ways to help families. So yeah, sign up to my newsletter and, stay informed.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and your busy schedule to come and chat on the podcast today.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks for joining us today on Mothering from Within. If today's chat sparked something inside of you to explore your motherhood journey deeper, the Mothering from Within Collective is waiting with open arms. This program offers an intimate, high-touch coaching journey designed to empower you with the confidence and clarity to embrace motherhood on your terms, free from guilt. Get curious about your parenting values, gain clarity on your baby's sleep, development, and more. With comprehensive courses, one-to-one support, group Q&As, and a nurturing community. This is your invitation to join a community of mamas doing it all their own way. Supported, seen, and held. Visit the link in the show notes to learn more about the collective and how we can walk this beautiful path together. Until next time, stay curious, embrace clarity, and let your courage shine.